Right, okay, I'm here with Daniel Steen, more commonly known to you and I as DJ Fresh. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Very good, yeah, very good.
Good.
Making the most of the last bit of the Indian summer.
Oh, fair enough. It's been pretty bad here, I've got to be honest. So why did you want to become a DJ?
I actually didn't, to be honest. I really just been obsessed with making music since I was a little kid, and when I got into drum and bass, all the people that I looked up to, like Andy C and Groove Rider, and all those guys were DJs, and you know, that was kind of how I heard music, through hearing DJ sets. And in drum and bass, it's really just a massive part of the culture. It's, you know, everybody DJs, because that's the only way that you can really perform your music live and get a reaction to it. So I started when I was at university, started doing some sets on pirate radio in Kingston, and before I knew it, I was just being asked to play at clubs and play at gigs, and it just happened naturally, really. It was never really something I was planning on doing, but now I'm really, really enjoying it, because technology these days allows you to do so much more that it almost feels like you've got kind of a little studio on stage, which is more my kind of thing. So, yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Where do you get the ideas for your music from, or do you just play around in the studio and see what sounds good?
Just depends, really. I mean, like, often I often sort of get like riff ideas stuck in my head in all kinds of weird places, and sing them into my phone. Like the hook from Louder, I recorded in my phone at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and my girlfriend was like lying asleep next to me in bed, and I was like trying to sing into my phone really quietly, trying not to wake her up. And that's pretty much how it works. Like, I'll be busy doing something, and all of a sudden I'll get an idea and have to run outside and record it into the phone, or, you know. But sort of back in the day with the instrumental stuff, it was always more of a concept idea than a melodic one. Like, there was a track I did called Floodlight a few years ago, where I was at home like one weekend, and I could hear this sort of bass coming from somewhere, and I was kind of bored, so I just decided I was going to go and try and find out what was going on. And I like walked for about 2 miles, and I was like walking along the motorway, and I finally ended up in this kind of crazy party in the middle of a forest. And I wrote a tune called Floodlight, and the track was, I was trying to copy what had happened to me that night. So I kind of like copied the sounds of being outside, and the filtered bass getting closer, and people talking as if they were trying to find this party in the middle of nowhere. It was quite a big drum and bass tune on the Underground a few years ago, but back then that was the kind of idea that would really inspire me, just, you know, like an idea or a concept behind a track, and now it's turning into song-based stuff and melodies and hooks.
That is the craziest way I've ever heard someone make a song.
It's pretty random, isn't it? Yeah.
So where did you get the idea from DJ Freshers to be your name?
When I was playing on Pirate, I went down there one day, and it was like pretty kind of on the edge. It was like we were in this council flat, and there was an antenna on top of a council estate block, and it was all pretty hardcore. And I was down there with these guys, and one of their decks broke, and I had a pair of decks, so I lent them one of my decks, and they kind of took me under their wing and gave me a slot in the middle of the night. And then gradually I started meeting people like MC Moose and Kenny Ken through the Pirate show, like who were massive drum and bass names at the time, and started producing with them and making tracks, and gradually, you know, meeting people like Andy C and Mickey Finn and Groove Rider. And when I was on Pirate one night, they just said, you know, you got to come up with a name, mate. And I used to scratch this record that said Fresh. So somebody said, why don't you call yourself Fresh? And that was it, basically.
Is that how you broke into the music industry, through small local radio stations?
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I don't know if you'd have heard these names, but Decline, who's quite a big breaks DJ, was also there with me at the time. You know, same kind of thing. We were both about 18, 19, and came through exactly the same route. Aaron Ross, who's now head of A&R at Defected, the house label, Donna D, who's quite a big garage name back in the day. So a lot of people came through the pirate radio stations, and that was like a hub of, for underground music and people getting together and working together and trying out ideas. It was a really exciting time.
Of course, you've collaborated with many people, such as the Pet Shop Boys and Andy C. Who else would you like to collaborate with in the future?
Loads of people, really. At the moment, singers, is the main thing, because I'm writing a lot of stuff, and it's great just hooking up with people whose voices I'm really excited about. Supposed to be doing something in a couple of weeks with a singer called Rita Ora, who's just signed to Rock Nation, and she's incredible. I'm really sort of all about working with people that haven't really blown yet, and trying to find new and exciting people to work with. But obviously there are people that are really well known that I'd be honoured to work with as well. So just kind of really just focusing on it on a track-by-track basis at the moment, looking at who I think's the right kind of person to feature on a track or collaborate with.
So where did the opportunity for Bribery Chaos come around from?
I met Adam F. About 6 or 7 years ago, and was a massive fan of his music, from his Colours album to his Chaos album, where he collaborated with Redman and Guru and a lot of the hip hop guys at the time, LL Cool J. And so I was a really big fan of his stuff, and we met somewhere and we just really hit it off, and we had really similar ideas about, we both felt that at the time drum and bass was very unappreciated commercially, and Adam had a sort of foot in the commercial world, and we felt that between the two of us we could really, sort of come together and bring some really exciting music and try and push it onto the radio. And so we signed Pendulum, one of the first acts that we signed. We brought them over from Australia, and we did their first album, which is, I think, sold about 500,000 copies now on Breakbeat Chaos. So that really sort of kicked things off. We signed some of Chase and Status's early stuff, and Nero's early stuff. A lot of the guys that are sort of blowing up commercially now were people that we were sort of around back then, that obviously weren't so well known, and we were signing the odd track from people that we thought had potential, and just trying to get as much stuff out there to people and get everybody excited about it that didn't really know that much about drum and bass at the time.
So with some of your bigger tracks, you've had artists remixing some of your stuff, such as Flux Pavilion and Dr. P. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, really excited. Flux Pavilion did my Gold Dust single, and at the time I was a massive fan of his. I just heard some of his early stuff and I thought, this guy's amazing. And I actually had to, when I first suggested him to Ministry, nobody had heard of him at that point, and I was really excited. I was like, you've got to check this guy's music out, he's going to be massive. And he delivered the most amazing remix. It kind of was one of the tracks that kicked things off for him, the Gold Dust remix, especially in America. And again, coming from a label background, that's been really cool for me, because I kind of always have my ear to the ground a bit, and I'm really interested in hearing what's coming, who the next up and coming guys are. And it's great to have a platform now where I can invite people to remix my stuff and try and use the platform that I've got to give other people that I'm excited about some profile and the opportunity to get their music heard as well.
Do you fancy recommending us an album that you're a massive fan of?
I'm gonna do the sort of typical thing here and recommend something on Breakbeat Chaos, but the new Brooks Brothers album. I don't know if you've heard much of the Brooks Brothers stuff, but absolutely incredible album came out at the end of last year, and it's like a musical journey really from start to finish. Really soulful. Guys are really sort of influenced by jazz and soul when they grew up, and their music's really, really interesting to listen to and very soulful and melodic. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend that people go and buy a copy of the Brooks Brothers album.
When you come to Lincoln, you're going to be performing alongside DJ Yoda, Toddler T and Killer Keller. Are you looking forward to seeing them and their live sets?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, massive fan of Toddler T and Yoda. You know, Yoda, I don't know if he's doing his full video show that night, but he does a really interesting sort of video audio show. And Toddler T obviously is making some really, really exciting stuff as well. They're definitely people that I'm excited about seeing and hearing those sets.
My final question, how do you get ready for a gig?
To be honest, it's always super last minute. It's funny because I used to before I started driving, which was only a few years ago, I used to get this mate of mine to drive me to all of my gigs, and he always used to say to me, he's like, no matter what time we plan on leaving at, you're always frantically running around burning CDs, trying to work out, trying to get stuff ready for your set. So I do take it pretty seriously. I think, like, I really, you know, if I've got the time, I try and look at every gig as being a different audience, different crowd of people, and I try and kind of tailor my set and think about, you know, what might work in that environment and, you know, what to play. Obviously at the moment it's difficult because I'm really, really busy in the studio. I'm putting together a live show, so I don't have as much time to spend on DJing.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. So have you got anything you'd like to say to your fans before you leave?
I guess just, yeah, thanks for the support, man, and thanks everybody that's supporting my music and supporting drum and bass and dubstep and being part of the musical revolution that's going on at the moment in the music industry.